Madam Chair, distinguished presenters, and those listening in. I was asked to prepare a speech, so I shall deliver. Among the harsh lessons we have learned from the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic is that it is essential to have as many options as possible. Even more important, it is necessary to forge ties with those of shared heritage, traits, and outlook, those most likely to have your back when the chips are down. The pandemic has added vaccine equity to an already crowded list of existential threats, from global issues such as climate change to more subtle oppressive issues such as economic blacklisting to everyday trials. So I take particular pride on this celebration of Africa Day to declare that the foundation laid by particularly Ghana and Kenya with Barbados and the Caribbean community to engender a new, much closer relationship has had an impressive start, certainly from the Barbadian perspective. Last year, on August 30th, when the COVID-19 pandemic was at the height of its ravishing power, Barbados welcomed 95 nurses from the Republic of Ghana on an initial 2-year assignment. At that time, Barbados had one of the best records of managing the pandemic. But the arrival of nurses by an 8-hour charter in a world of chaos underscored the resolve of the governments of Ghana and Barbados to establish closer ties regardless. The symbolism of the nurses' arrival when everything was at a standstill said something more than an action from an agreement. It said to Barbados and the rest of the Caribbean that Ghana cares inherently, and further declared that Barbadian and Ghanaian people are destined for a future that upends our history for a brave new interaction and existence. Of course, the functional cooperation signified by the nurses, the first out of the wide-ranging agreement signed by President Akufo-Addo of Ghana and Prime Minister Mia Mottley of Barbados, has benefited Barbados immensely, and we are truly grateful. The humanity of Ghana's action will never be forgotten. Of similar significance, the African Union, through the African Medical Supplies Platform, in brotherly love, offered CARICOM countries vaccines, with Barbados due to receive 60,000 doses of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. These are just the first manifestations of the new engagement between Barbados and African nations, established by the visit to Barbados in 2019 of President Akufo-Addo of Ghana, as well as President of Kenya, Uhuru Kenyatta, and visits to both Kenya and Ghana by Prime Minister Mottley. With envoys already named, as soon as travel allows, Barbados will have its first appointment, a commercial and cultural attaché stationed in the Barbados High Commission in Accra, and a team including a High Commissioner and permanent representative to the United Nations office in Nairobi, in Kenya. Of note, the first Kenyan ambassador to CARICOM, His Excellency Antonia Maniki Shiri, also was received last year during the pandemic via Zoom. These developments and others, which seek to collaborate on trade and investment, education, health, tourism, and culture, will build out a framework at the political level to create the space for our people to deepen and expand what have been historical impacts across the Caribbean and in various African countries. Pandemic or no pandemic, there's no stopping us now. The separation of Africa from the Caribbean by an ocean must never again be seen as a barrier to bridging the gaps between our regions. In the same way, there are direct flights to England from Barbados lasting 8 hours. Our people must be able to access African nations through direct flights to Ghana and elsewhere through bilateral arrangements. It is, after all, the same 8 hours from Barbados to England, and that has been ongoing for almost a century now. Indeed, without the improvements in transport and technology we now enjoy, Caribbean people and African people have found ways to live, work in, and enjoy each other's countries, in some cases in its exceptional ways. Barbadians have left unmovable marks in many African countries, including Liberia, Ethiopia, and Sierra Leone. At times, there have been mass migrations from the Caribbean to African countries. People are usually far ahead of government on any integration movement. I was fascinated some 40 years ago when my neighbor married an African. But that was the interaction then and long before, and it is more the norm now. In the Caribbean, the structural arrangements for integration and wide cooperation through CARICOM lag the movement and connections of people across Caribbean countries. The cultural interface of diverse people has historically been the game changer. For once, though, it appears that Caribbean and African people are in the rear of governmental action, at least here in New York. Which brings me to my essential point today. It is believed that there are at least some 2 million Africans living in New York, and more than 1 million Caribbean people. These figures represent the largest concentration of citizens from both regions outside of their home countries. This concentrated diaspora represents one of the greatest resources of Africa and the Caribbean, in building necessary connections. It is an ongoing missed opportunity of immense proportions to not construct, at the very least, a dialogue between and with the two groups, and ideally shape formalized structures so that the power of the more than 3 million people can be fully brought to bear for the benefit of not only their New York communities, but our respective countries and areas. A new dimension can be added to the marking of Africa Day in New York with a united African Caribbean group in place to buttress it and expand celebrations in diverse ways throughout the 5 boroughs. I am not aware beyond this forum of anything that commemorates Africa Day in New York, and I congratulate the organizer and all associated with it. I'm sure there are some nods at the granular level to this day that marks the historic formation of the African Union in 1963. But where are the usual symbolic things, wider media engagement, and public awareness of Africa Day? Is there still an attempt at an Africa Day parade? Despite Africa being the world's second fastest growing economy and poised in all ways to take its rightful place on the global stage, there is still a sharp learning curve to climb in knowing and learning about Africa. Like many, if I tell the truth, I am constantly thrilled and amazed by the depth and breadth and sheer richness of the history, range of culture, and ongoing strides in the re-emergence of the African continent as a central axis in the world. The more you know, the more there is to know. So I look forward to, for instance, an Africa Day parade in the same way there is a St. Patrick's Day, Cinco de Mayo, Puerto Rican Day, and other parades. And there must be the same immersive experience throughout New York and media buy-in for Africa Day so that the concerns and causes of Africa and the celebration of African culture are given their just due. In many ways, the concerns and causes are shared with the Caribbean people and indeed African Americans. Let us be fully aware of the times we live in, one in which some 47 states are now introducing legislation that will curb voting rights, which translates as Black rights. The pushback against progressive and necessary developments like the 1619 Project and teaching of Black history in schools. And I want to remind everyone, today is the anniversary of the death of George Floyd. Most of the millions of African and Caribbean people resident in New York, as elsewhere throughout the USA, will not be returning home to live. There must therefore be the harnessing of these numbers and all that they bring to effect necessary change for their own benefit and that of our respective unions and countries. This caucus will leave an indelible mark. It will be truly historical. If out of it comes an African Caribbean dialogue and summit, from there, the possibilities are endless. The times call for it. The determination to bond Caribbean countries, as seen by the steps of Barbados, Ghana, and Kenya, and by other countries in the Caribbean and on the African continent, and by the African Union and CARICOM Secretariat, provides the perfect backdrop for action in New York. The strides made last year in the throes of the pandemic are instructive. It is an exciting time in the history of relationships between Barbados, the CARICOM region, and African countries. Petty infighting among people, which is usual everywhere in the world, should not be a deterrent to starting this process. The demonstrated urgency and commitment are inspiring and already generating the kind of conversations between civilians that will form an Atlantic axis marked by action. New York should be an integral part of this process of rediscovery, new discovery, and new horizons. The athletic slogan is up here. Let's do it. Let's do it now. It has been an honor to be a part of this forum once again and to join in yet another celebration of Africa Day, representing Barbados and indeed the Caribbean. Stay safe, and I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Consul General Mackie Holder. Thank you for your time and for what you explained is very, very important for me. But before I let you go, if you don't mind, I heard you say something is very, very important to me, and I would like we talk about it even 5 or 7 minutes, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
I heard you say something that most Africans and Caribbean will not return home. Uh, that's, I agree with you, but I would like you go deeply, giving me some details why motivate you to say that.
I think it is really a simple thing from the Caribbean point of view, and I believe from various nations in Africa. A number of people would have come here looking for a better way of life, as they say. And many people have established family units and other ties in New York and throughout the USA. At the end of the day, that family is the biggest drawing card. A number of people have children who were born here, grandchildren, and so on. And most of their families are in New York or in America. And it is, difficult then to pick up and leave your daughters, your sons, your grandchildren, and so on, and your investments here and go back after you've been here 30, 40 years. Um, in Barbados and the Caribbean, we do have some people returning home. Uh, in recent years, we've had more people doing that. Some of that is a reflection on what is the ongoing situation throughout America. But generally, most people are going to remain here. And Africa, you know, we tend to speak of Africa as one unit. Africa is a range of countries, so things will different in various countries. But I think, to put it in another way, that we need to adopt. I hear Mona speaking of the Jews a while ago, but we need to adopt the attitude of, in recent times, Indians who came here, were educated, especially in the tech sector, and took the investments back to India and took themselves in large measure back to England to help develop those countries. We do have some of that going in the Caribbean. Of course, in the Caribbean, our nations are very much smaller than the number of African nations. So we do need some of the outside support and the repatriation of funds and investment to drive our country. But those are the reasons I say that that's really, all things considered, and without all the efforts, the year of the return and so on, it is just a human nature that people are gonna, keep where their families, stay where their families are.
Yeah, this is the thing. So when we say about better life in America, we all know that in Caribbean, in African, whatever we find here, like natural resources, we have that in the Caribbean, in Africa. Today, Africa is a continent of most of richest in the world. When it comes to the sun, people are develop the new technology talking about solar panel. What if you do that in Africa, we don't need electricity anymore. When it comes to gold, when it comes to oil, we see in Africa, we have it a lot. But the point is, our leaders who lead in us, the politician like you or someone else, most of them are corrupt. The point that we working for the white people, we working for the colonized people who gonna tell us what to do. That's why our youth, our young people, they run away from Caribbean, from Africa, thinking that America is the El Dorado, America is the paradise. And I'm gonna blame politicians in our country because they have a bad program on the TV. They like to show the beautiful vision, the beautiful face of America, of Europe, the nice places, making our young people to dream to come to America or go somewhere else. And I believe the way we can develop our country is very simple and easy. So why our new generation? I'm not gonna stay here talking about slavery, colonization, what happened like 35, 45 years ago. It's already done. But we, you, me, and someone else, educated, highly educated, have knowledge, have degree, have diploma, why we still not get together, refuse that new colonization to happen our new generation? Do you think it's fair?
You said a mouthful. Let me see if I can answer some points. Um, Speaking for the Caribbean, and especially for Barbados, but I will speak for the Caribbean here, that overwhelmingly the Caribbean has been well served by its political leaders, overwhelmingly so. Certainly Barbados has an international reputation for its political leadership. We now have our first female prime minister, and the management of, for instance, the COVID pandemic, for a small nation of 280,000 people, 166 square miles, was marvelous. Sure, was it perfect? No, but what it pointed to was an outstanding leadership, an outstanding team of people in the political arena. Now, So there may be that distinction between certain African countries and the Caribbean, but there's a developmental process to all of this. And I agree with you that there's also an education process. You would have heard me say in my remarks that even if truth be told, even someone like me, there's so much to know about Africa. There's so much to learn about Africa. But in most cases, and I believe this is true for some African nations as well, we get our information from Western media and so on. So that is a cultural dilemma that a number of countries face. There has to be a further education process. In fact, a very intense education process that countries have to undertake to let their people know what is taking place in their countries. I imagine that a number of African countries are very much ahead of where they were 20, 30 years ago. But this has to be brought to the fore. And this is why I said that we need to have media involved. We need to have wider engagement and build bridges with certainly Caribbean people, but as many people as necessary, so that the correct information can be out there. But in terms of what Ghana and Kenya and all the other countries of South Africa are engaging with the Caribbean, we need to build some structure underneath it. I would have mentioned in my speech about the 8 hours from Ghana to Barbados, 8 hours to England. We've been going to England for donkey's years. There's no flights to Ghana. That will rectify a number of things. Instead of going to England, I would love to take an 8 hour flight to Ghana, and from Ghana, it's easy then to get to other countries.
Yes.
So there's a whole lot of education that needs to be brought to bear. But let us bring it to New York now. And I said we're on this forum and others are listening in. And we need to harness the power that we have, because people are the power, right? Politicians might think they have the power, but people are the power. And we have seen throughout the world, throughout history, that when people want to bring about change, they will sacrifice their lives and they will bring about the change. So I think there is work to be done by all countries in terms of letting their people in the diaspora know the developments in their own countries and so on and so forth. You are not going to win all, but I think that we cannot just sit back and assume that people know what developments are ongoing in our respective countries. Now, I would have said that Caribbean countries are slightly different because we're so small. So for a country like Barbados, where we have no natural resources, although I must tell you that solar energy was developed in Barbados, and I know there are some partnerships with some African countries and some African business people. Something like that. And this is where what is happening now, the conversations that are ongoing between the Caribbean and African nations. These are the things that become beneficial, that we can help you if you need it, with the transfer of solar technology and so on. And you can help us with various things. In Barbados, as I said, our only resource is our people. We have no natural resources, sun, sea beyond that. And it's a remarkable that we've been able to achieve. But for Barbados, this is important that we can, I don't like to use the word export, but we find avenues for some of our people to go overseas, because there's only so much capacity that we can generate in Barbados as a country without natural resources. And that is one of the hard facts that we have to bear. But I will end this part of my contribution by saying that Africa is now as I said, the second fastest growing grouping in the world. Um, we know the history of Africa. We know the wealth in Africa, the untapped wealth in Africa. And it is up to African nations, whether through the existing setups or creating something new, the African Union or something else, that they collectively harness what they have and utilize it for the benefit of their citizens. I think earlier this year or last year, the president of Ghana was speaking about the export of cocoa and so on to Switzerland, and he declared in Switzerland that that will stop, and that is the lead that we all have to follow. That whatever resources we have, we can manipulate them with the technology that is available to us now. It is not like 40 years ago when you were dependent on outside forces. That with the technology and all that is available now, countries can take their raw materials and add value so that instead of selling your cocoa beans, you develop the chocolate, and there's no reason why you shouldn't. So we have some ways to go, and that is why I'm very keen. I am really very keen on harnessing the power and the potential of the African community and the Caribbean community in New York and elsewhere. Um, I said there are about 3 million between us. Obviously, there's more than that, and imagine the difference that can make. There's an election coming up. There are elections coming up in New York. Those votes can make a huge difference, and you guys and your fellow leaders in the African communities, and myself and others, those in the Caribbean communities, must be able to communicate to our brethren that there is strength in numbers. There is strength in numbers. And if you want to change something for the better, I heard someone say that, there's some people here starving and so on and struggling. If you want to effect lasting change, you have to get, I'm sorry to tell you, you have to get into the political process, and you have to be engaged. As it stands now, the numbers that we have, because we're not together, and I heard someone making that point, and that is a good point. We have to be together. There's more that unites us than divides us, and there's no reason why the power of 3+ million people cannot be harnessed to influence change in a community by having a conversation with a politician to say, well, in this district, there are 50,000 Africans and there are 10,000 Caribbean people. So, those 60,000 people can decide, whether you win this district or not. And that is where I think our people have to go, by first understanding their power, um, understanding where we come from and where our base is. I did say that a number of people are not going to go back home, but it is important not so much that I think there's a famous quote from one of the African icons that you can't take, basically saying that it's not that you were born in Africa, but Africa is born in you. So you remain African wherever you go. And I go back to Mona's comment that, Jews are Jews no matter where they are. And as long as African and Caribbean people understand where they come from and assert their culture, today is a day that I have not heard a single mention on local stations or any other TV stations about Africa Day. I don't see any plantain and so on. These are some people might consider them small things, but these are important things to children and to the communities that we live in, to get other people outside our own Caribbean and African people to understand that there is something called Africa Day, that there's a continent called Africa, and it's a great continent. And these are some of the things. And that must happen. That should happen. There's no reason it can't happen. You know, and what I would say to you, sir, is do not let the tribalism, and I don't mean in terms of African tribes, I mean the political tribalism that you get among people. Do not let the infighting deter you. Keep pressing forward. It is important that we set up the structures and show younger generations, those who are born here, what we stand for, and that we do not lose them to a Western style of living.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Consul General Mackie Holder, for your time. We really appreciate it. Hopefully, I'm gonna have opportunity to meet you personally. So we're gonna elaborate our discussion. Okay. Well, it was a pleasure meeting you. Thank you so much.
It's up to Mona to set it up. Mona, the ball is in your court. And I want to thank y'all for having me on. I hope I was able to contribute to the discussion.
Yes, you do. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, now we're gonna go to our next topic. We're gonna talk about immigration and the African Continental Free Trade Area panel. So the moderator is gonna be Mona Davids.